Hey guys, welcome to the second part of section 2, web storage. And for this project we're going to implement something on our Blue Developer Directory website. And what I want to do is I have this little newsletter box down here, and it just asks for your name and your email. Now what we're going to do is we're going to utilize the local storage feature, because we're going to grab the name that they enter, and we're going to have a little welcome text up here that says welcome and then their name, and we're also going to get their email address. And if they already submitted to the form, it'll say here, instead of please enter your email address, it'll say already subscribed or something, and then it would have their email address. Okay, so it's just something small, but something that we could fully integrate into our website that is really coming along here. I mean, obviously we have no database or server-side stuff going on, but we could always, this is a website that you could add to that when you move on and start learning about other stuff. So let's get started. So in your chapter 5 section 2 folder, and then the program files, you should have the done version and the HTML version, which is the up to what we have up to this point. So I'm going to copy that, the HTML version. When I say HTML version, I just mean the earlier one, the one that we're on now, as opposed to the done version. And I'm just going to paste this on my desktop and work in here. You guys feel free to work in the actual folder. And first of all, let's open up our index page. Alright, so this is the final one, and this is the one we're going to be working on now. So I'm going to open up my index page in Notepad++, and the first thing we should do is add the form, and I want to do that right in this nav, in this left side nav. Okay, so I'm gonna, one second guys. So what I want to do is I want to add a div right here, and in between this div I want to create the form. So I'm going to put in H3 and write newsletter, save it. So it's going to be right here. We're going to do a little bit of styling. This needs to be brought down and stuff like that. Actually, what I'm going to do is put some BR tags in to help us bring that down. Some line breaks, and reload, and now it's down. Alright, so under the newsletter we want to start a form, and we're going to give this an ID of news, and we're going to close up the form, and in it we want a name input field, and that'll be type text. Alright, input type text. Let's give it an ID of name, and we'll give it a name of name as well. And under that we want to do an email input, so we'll say input type, and we'll use our new HTML5 type of email, so that it must validate as an email address. And we'll give it an ID of email and a name of email. Alright, now under that we want to do our submit button. And the value, which is what is written on the button, we'll just say send. Okay, Let's reload. Let's save and reload. And now we get our little form. If you look at the finished one, we have white text. So what I'm going to do is go into the CSS of this. Style CSS, and we want to scroll down. Now we got to pick some kind of selector to use to specify what we want to do. And if we look in the index file, let me just close these two files. We don't need those. And we have the nav element. Wait a minute. I think I closed the wrong. I think I closed the wrong file. Let me get this back. That was the index file. Alright, so here's where we were. So what should I grab here? I'm not gonna grab the nav tag. I'm gonna use the A side tag, which is basically references our sidebar. Alright, so remember A side. So now we're gonna go into our CSS, and right above the nav styles I'm gonna do this. So I'm just gonna write A side, and oops, not slide, side. And in here, I'm going to say color white. So save that, reload. Now everything's white. What else do we want to do here? First of all, these input boxes are much too close together, so I want to add some margin on those. And I'm going to show you a special Css3 selector that we can use here. So normally you could put input, alright, and then we could do margin bottom 10 pixels. And that would work if we reload, but it also adds 10 pixels on every input, which would also be the button. Now right here it looks fine, but if it was a case where we didn't want to move the button and we just wanted these two types, we could use this new Css Selector, and it will allow us to choose the input type. So it would be input, and then open a bracket, and then say type, and then equals text, and then close the bracket. So this right here applies to all the inputs that are the text of the text type. So if we do this and save it and reload, the text type does. Remember, this is an email type, so that's not the margin isn't being applied to that. It's being applied only to text fields. So we go back here and we can copy this, and then put a comma, and then add it again, and we can change this text to email so that it also affects email types. So we save that, and now it gave us the margin on the email field. So really cool that you can specify things like this. I mean, you could specify any kind of attribute. You could use the name attribute, things like that. So CSS3 really has a lot of great new tools that we can use to make our sites more dynamic. Alright, so now everything's white, all the color is white, and if you look at this, you'll see we have a little bit of text here. I'm going to copy that and paste it right under the H3. Okay, now I'll save, reload, and there's our message. Now this is going to do absolutely nothing. You know, the only thing it's going to do is if I don't have an email it's going to tell us to put an email, and that's just from using the email type. So if I put brad@aol.com, send. Oh, actually, that wasn't supposed to happen yet. Oh, this is the wrong, I'm sorry, this is the finished product. Let me get out of that. This is where we were. So reload. So if I put Brad and then brad@aol.com, send, it does absolutely nothing, and that's normal. All we have here is HTML. We're not using any JavaScript to handle any type of functions, any kind of on-submit functions. So that's what we got to do now. And I don't like how this please enter your email address is smushed up against the top and bottom. So what I'm going to do is just add a paragraph tag onto that, and that should give it some padding. Alright, there we go. So like I said, ultimately what we want to happen is we want our name to get caught. Alright, it gets caught in the input field, and we want to use HTML5 storage to store that in a key value pair, and to also store the email. And then what we want to take those values and display the name up here and then the email down here. So we have to do a little bit of JavaScript stuff, some functions, but it's not really that hard. So the first thing I want to do is when do we want this JavaScript to kick in initially, and that's when we want the form, when the form gets submitted. So what we want to do is we want to go to the form tag right here, and we want to use an event handler, and we want to use the onSubmit event handler. So onSubmit, so when this form gets submitted, we want to call a function, and I'm going to name that function Init storage. So, and that is initialize storage, and we need our parentheses. So when the form gets submitted, it's not going to go anywhere. We don't have an action attribute. It's just going to go to this JavaScript function that we're going to define up in the head, if that makes sense. So let's go up to the head and let's open our script tags. When you open script tags, I mean, you can do it like this, but you actually should use the type and then text JavaScript. That would be the semantic way to do it. So what do we want in here? The first thing we want is the init storage function. We want to define that and what it does. So we want to do function init storage, open close curly braces, and what I want to do in here is I want to create another function, which is going to be the save name function. It's the function that's going to get the name from here and save it using HTML5 storage. Okay, so let's do function save name. Same thing, open curly braces. Make sure you're indenting, or else it won't look very good. It'll be harder to read. So in the save name function, the first thing I want to do is create a variable called name, and I want to get that. I want to get that the ID of name. So we do document dot get element by ID, and what ID do we want to get is name, which I'll show you down here. Is right here. The name input text, the ID is name, so that's what it's getting. So now we have name in a variable. We have that input name in the variable. So under the variable, I want to set the item using local storage. So we would do local storage. And remember, you could also do session storage if you want, but like we talked about, the difference between local and session is session, any data you put in is going to get cleared when you close the browser, when your session ends. This will stay unless we clear it or the user clears it. So we want to do local storage dot set item, and this is where we put that key value pair that we talked about. So the key is going to be name, and the value we want to get is, first we want to get this name. This is the name we got from the ID. Alright, so name. We don't need parentheses because this is a variable. This is not. So the variable name, now doing it like this will not work. We need to get the name value. So what we got to do is just add a period and then the word value. So it'll get this name, where is it? It'll get this name's value, which will be whatever the user types in. So that's it set the item. As soon as they enter something in the name field, it gets set and stored right here. Now that's all. Excuse me, one second. Mouth is a little dry. So that's it for the save name function, for now at least. Next thing we want to do is create the save email function, which is basically the same thing. We're just saving the email field as opposed to the name. So save email, and in that we're going to do the same. Actually, I'll just copy and paste this. All we need to do is change the variable, change the ID, change the key, and then change this variable. Alright, so it's doing the same exact thing. It's getting the name and then it's getting the email. Now this is all good. It's coded correctly to do what it's supposed to, but we haven't called the save name or the save email yet. So I want to go down. I want to make sure we're out of both of these functions and we're still in the init storage function, and then I just want to call them, because the function will do nothing if you don't call them. So save name will run and save email will run. So now what I'd like to do is just make sure things are working. So I just want to take this save name function. When it runs, I want it to alert the set item that we just set. Oh, there is some mistakes here. We should have a comma here and get rid of this comma, and then down here same thing, get rid of that comma. I just want to go over this and make sure everything's how it's supposed to be. Okay, so what I want to do is just make an alert. I want to alert the, now I told you how we set the local storage item like this. To retrieve it, we want to use get item. So to retrieve it, we'll do local storage, in the capital S. Whoop. Sorry guys, this computer sticks, the keys stick, and I can't stand it. I don't know why I haven't gotten a new one yet. So we want to do local storage dot get item, and the item we want to get is the name, value, key value. Okay, so hopefully that'll alert with the value that we enter. Okay, so reload. I'm just going to put in Brad, send, and Brad pops up. So if you can see what's going on here, we set the item, we took the input box of name and we brought it up here. We grabbed it with this get element by ID, and then we set that value to this, using the storage, to this key, to the name key. We set the value of name to the name key, and here we get the name key, and we alerted it. And that's not what we want to do here. We want to have it written out up here. So I'm going to get rid of the alert. That was strictly testing. Now I'm going to do the same thing. Actually, let me just copy this, because I want to do the same thing with the email. It's good to test things out just so you don't keep going when something's screwed up. So we just need to change this to email. Save. Now an email, remember it's got to be a valid email, so I'll just say brad@aol.com. Send, and there's nothing showing up here for some reason. It's alerting, but it's not showing up. Email value. Input type. ID. Email. That's strange. Alright, there we go. So the email is popping up. So we can get rid of that alert. Alright, now we know that everything's working. We know that we're using the storage correctly. We're setting it and then we're getting it. Now all we have to do is place it. So like I said, what I want to do is just have like a welcome back Brad, or whatever your name is that you input on the in the newsletter input box. So we're going to need some functions for that, because we can't directly type JavaScript right there where we want it, so we have to create some new functions. So I'm going to go out of the init storage. I'm going to go out of that function and create a new one. And I want to do function. I'm going to call this display name. Okay, and in that, I want to make sure that there is actually a value in the name key, or value, whatever you want to call it. I want to make sure that someone typed their name in and that we saved it. So I'm going to say if, I apologize if my voice sounds like I'm losing it. I think I'm getting a little sick. So we're going to do if local storage dot get item name. I don't usually use Notepad++. I usually use either NetBeans or Dreamweaver, and those programs, they close your parentheses automatically, and they'll add the closing tags, closing div tags. So that's why I apologize for my typing on. I just usually don't use this this editor. So if local storage dot get item name, if it is not null, because if it wasn't set, then it's set to null. It returns null. So we want to make sure that it's not null. And that's what this question mark and equals means. It means it's not. If we had two equals like this, that would mean if it is null. But we want if it's not null. So if it's not null, hold on one second. Yeah, if it's not null, then what we want to do is write it to the screen, right? So to do any kind of printing to the screen, you need to use the document.write function of JavaScript. and in that we want to have the welcome back message. So we're going to do welcome back, and we're going to have to do a little concatenation here with the plus sign so we can add some JavaScript. And this is going to be local storage dot get item and name. Okay, and that should do that. That should be it for that. So if the value is not null, then we want to write welcome back, and then it would put the name here, whichever we put in the input box. I just want to double check, make sure this looks right. Alright, so that looks good. Now if we save it and we reload, nothing happens. We have nothing up here. What we got to do is go down to where we do want it and call this function, this display name function, because this function writes it out. So we want to go down to where we want to put it, and I want to do it right under the menu, the main menu, right after the closing UL. And I'm just going to put a div ID of display name. I don't like to do camel case in CSS. Close that div, and in here we want to call that function, but we can't just write the function, we have to open a script tag. And then inside there we can say display name. So that's our function. Alright, so let's save that. Let's reload. You can see up here it's in black. It says welcome back, Brad, because that's what I put in here last. Now I'm going to do a little bit of CSS and fix that. So let's go here. Let me just figure out where I need to put this. Let's go right above the nav menu, and display name was what we said. Oops, shouldn't be a $sign. And we want to do color white, and we want to float it to the right. What else? I'm going to make it bold, and let's set a font size of 16 pixels. Save that, go back over here, reload, and it's still black. Oh, sorry, I made it black. There we go. Alright, so we get this cool little welcome. I actually want to put a comma in there after back. Okay, comma, save. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to move it over just a bit. I'm going to use CSS. I'm just going to say padding right 10 pixels. Alright, so now we have this, and where we use the local storage and not the session storage, we can close the browser and come back and it'll be there, which I'll show you after we finish this. The next thing we need to do is create the function to show our email address here, if it has it, if we have set it through this form. Alright, so right now we have this text here, please enter your email address. We have that right here, but that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is set up an if-else condition. I want to say if we have it stored, then we want to display the email here, but if we don't, then we want this to display. So I can't keep it here. This is where the actual function will go. So I'm going to get rid of that for now. So I got rid of that for now, and I want to make another function, and this is going to be show text. So in here we want to test again, okay? We want to say if, actually let's just copy this right here, because we want to check and make sure that this is, if this email is null or not. We're actually going to say if it is null. If the email is null, then we want to document write. And what we want to write is what we just had down there, which is this. Nope, shoot. I guess I gotta rewrite it. So, what does it say? It said, please enter your email address. Okay, and we want a paragraph. Alright, so if it's null, then it's going to say please enter your email address. Let's save it and see. I'm not sure if it's null. Well, that's not showing, so I guess it is. Let's do the else. So, I mean, I hope you can understand this. It's saying if the email is not set, I'm sorry, if it is null, which means not set, it's going to say please enter your email address. If it is set, which right now it is because we did fill it out, so that's what we want to put here, and we're going to do another document write. And in here it's going to be a little more complicated. We want to do a paragraph, and we want to write subscribed email. Alright, now we're probably going to have to concat it now. Oh, wait a second. I want to make that strong or bold. Okay, make that strong. Now we want to concatenate the actual value, which would be local storage dot get item email, and then we want to concatenate again because we want to close that p tag, and that should be it for that. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, so actually the reason it's not showing over here is we haven't called the function. You know where we did right here, we called display name right here in this area. Now we need to call the other function show text. So I'm just going to copy that and go down to where we want to display this, which is right here. But we don't want display name, we want show text. Save that, and if we reload, now it says our subscribed email is this. Now we can change this. If I go back and I say John Doe, and I change my email to john@aol.com and send, it changes both. It changes the subscribed email as well as the welcome text name. So pretty cool stuff. And we're almost there. The last thing I want to do is I want to put a button or a link here that will allow us to clear out these values. So I'm going to go to right around this area, and I want to make a link. And I'm going to set it to the hashtag, which means the link's actually not going to go to a new page. What I do want to do is add an event handler of onClick. So onClick, I want it to run a function called clearAll. Close the link, and we'll just put the word clear in there. So save that and reload, and we have this word clear. But right now it's going to a function called clearAll, but we don't have it defined yet, so it's not doing anything. Now that's the last function we have to go up here and create. So function clearAll. And this is actually very easy. We want to use the local storage dot clear, and what this does is it just clears all the local storage variables, strings, values, whatever you want to call them. Now if we leave it like this, let me show you what happens. So I reload and I clear it out, but see how they're still there. But if I go and reload the page, they're gone. So we don't want that. We want to clear it and then have it automatically clear. So all I'm going to do here is add the JavaScript code that will reload the page. So it's window.location.reload. Very simple. So if I save that, now let's put some names back in. I'll put John Doe back in, and John at AOL.com. Alright, so now why isn't that working? That's very odd. Show text, init storage, save. Oh, alright, so now if we clear it, it gets cleared right away. Now I want to see if that happens again, because that was kind of weird. Alright, so now it's working. We clicked, now it has our email, it has our name. We can clear it out again, and it clears. So, I mean, this is a small implementation for the web storage, but I think this is a nice little project because it shows us exactly how it works. It shows us the exact syntax, how we use the set item to set a name and value, and then we have the get item that gives it back to us. So that's the basics, that's the foundation of the web storage API. So next we have application cache in the next section, section 3, and I will see you there.